Welcome in. This is 85 at 40. I am Bill Zimmerman along with Jeff Burkus, and we are excited to do this individual. He was a key member of the 85 defense, a member of the secondary. We always hear about the front seven. We don't hear about the secondary as much. We want to talk to him. A longtime coach in the NFL, head coach, defensive coordinator, Vikings, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, now a member of the Seattle Seahawks staff. He is Leslie Frazier, and he joins us now. Coach Bill Zimmerman, how are you?
Thank you, Bill. I'm doing good and appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you about this. And let me kind of start with what I hinted at in the intro, and that is about the 46 defense and the role of the defensive backs, specifically the cornerbacks, because we always hear about the front seven and the blitzing and Wilson and Marshall and the front four and everything they did to create pressure. But to me, I've always looked back at that defense and goes, if you don't have cornerbacks that can really be sticky in coverage, you bring that much pressure, those cornerbacks are going to get beat. But you guys, you and Mike Richardson did a great job. So what was the role of the defensive backs, specifically the corners, in that defense to make it so dominant?
Well, I really appreciate you recognizing the importance of the coverage part of our defense, because that kind of gets lost in translation at times. And I know Jeff and you as well, Bill, you guys understand the importance of getting people covered up, because we brought a lot of pressure. I mean, we put a lot of pressure on offenses and attack. Buddy did a great job of attacking people's protection schemes, but the ball would get off at times. It wasn't like we sacked them every single time they had a pass attempt. So Mike and I, along with Gary and Dave Durson, we had to be able to cover in the secondary. And we were fortunate to be able to get our hands on some balls and help our defense to have the kind of success we had. But it meant being able to play a lot of man coverage, sometimes from press, and also being able to play some zero coverage with no one in the post. And it's hard for your defense to be successful if you don't have guys on the back end that can hold up at least for a couple of seconds. And we were able to do that.
Well, Coach, it's been 4 decades and you're a lifetime football guy. So you've been around the game, and I can't think of anybody better to ask this question because you're still coaching at a high level here. No one's playing 46 defense, on a snap to snap basis in today's game, but what are the remnants of that defense that have carried forward that you can still see in today's game?
Well, actually, Jeff, there are remnants of it in our system here in Seattle. Mike McDonald, our head coach, who also kind of runs our defense, he worked in Baltimore prior to coming to Seattle. And the blueprint in Baltimore was laid by Rex Ryan, who's the son of our famed defensive coordinator, Buddy Ryan. So a lot of remnants of that defense carried over in Baltimore, and Mike has brought some of that with him to Seattle as well. And you see splatters of it from other teams around the league. You'll see, 3 defensive linemen covering the guards and the centers, and a couple of edge guys that are lined up on the edge to rush the passer. But you're right, nobody really does it on a consistent basis like we did. But there's still some teams that have parts of that defense in their defensive scheme.
Well, you talked about Buddy Ryan, and I think the two of you have very distinctly different personalities, but obviously an all-time great defensive coordinator, had some success as a head coach as well. What did you learn from Buddy Ryan or even Mike Ditka and some of the coaches you had during your playing career that you did take from them and institute into your own coaching?
That's a great question, Bill. You're right. My personality and Buddy's personality are far different, but he influenced me tremendously as a defensive coordinator and as a coach in general. And so did Coach Ditka. I learned a lot from both of them. I think back to when Coach Ditka came in, and I look at the way he kind of dissected our roster. We had a lot of big name players when he arrived. And I learned early on that it didn't matter what your name was to him or what your accomplishments were before he got there. It was going to be all about your production and whether or not he thought you could help us to win a championship. And he changed that roster over quite a bit in the first couple of years. And he brought in some guys that were talented enough, but really smart as well. And it turned things around to the point where, we ended up winning a world championship. And so I'm always mindful of that when we're talking about rosters and and getting the best 11 on the field, making sure you don't get caught up in names, but, how will this guy be able to help you win? And then with Buddy, there's so much written and said about Buddy. And, obviously he was a genius when it comes to defensive football. But I share this with coaches at different times, and I'll share it with players at times as well. One of the things I took from Buddy was the ability to be able to listen to the players. There were times where a Mike Singletary or Gary Fensick or myself might have an idea or a thought. And you think because Buddy is who he is and all the success that he had, it was just going to be all about doing it the way Buddy wanted it done. But that wasn't necessarily true. I can remember a time, you guys may remember this name, Cliff Branch, who was a great wide receiver in our league for a long, long time with the Raiders. And we're getting ready to play the Raiders, and we're talking about the game plan. And Buddy tells me, I want to match you up with Cliff Branch throughout the day. I want you to get down there and press him and cover him all over the field. And so I started watching some tape of Cliff Branch, and I was like, man, this dude is pretty good. I mean, he's fast, he's quick, he's elusive. I said, I need to be able to change it up a little bit. I need to be able to mix it up. I can't just be lining up the same way all the time. And so I went to Buddy and I told him that. And I said, I like to be able to mix it up. I want to be able to press, but I want to be able to play off a little bit. I want to play inside, outside. And he looked at me and he said, Leslie, just do what you have to do to get him covered. I trust you. I'm okay with that. And man, you're talking about a relief, but also it boosted my confidence that he had confidence in me. And it was the same way if Mike Singletary had an idea about our game plan and had a thought based on his film study that he thought might help us, but it would listen and he'd incorporate some of our ideas. And so I tried to do that as a coach with our players. I try to give them some opportunities to share some of their thoughts, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to go out and execute the plan. And if they're not confident in it, if they don't feel good about it, the plan probably isn't going to work. And that's one of the things I learned from Buddy, and it's boded well for me. So very appreciative of them both. They were great influences on me, both as a coach and as a person as well.
I kind of want to follow up with that, Coach, because it seems that you had, another great player in Mike Singletary, who also went on to be a head coach in this league, and so many smart players. Did that really, help you have the confidence to start a coaching career afterwards? Was that relationship with Buddy part of what propelled you to that?
I guess in some ways it was. I got my first opportunity there in the suburbs of Chicago at Trinity College in Deerfield. But for me, it wasn't something I had a desire to do when I was playing. I used to look at our coaches, Coach Ditka, Buddy, and all our coaches, and look at the hours they would put in and say, man, this is a thankless job for those guys. And because we would get all the headlines and all the credit. But once I started looking at it and realizing the impact you could have as a coach, as I began to reflect on the influence that my coaches had on me, I kind of gravitated towards it. And so in a way, they did influence my decision to go into coaching. Because of the impact they had and the impact that I've learned that you can have as a coach. You have to remember that for some of our players, they don't have a father figure necessarily. Some come from homes where that's just not the case. So to have a chance to help a player succeed on the field, but be able to impact him off the field as well in his daily life, I mean, that's a special situation and a special feeling you have when you see a guy go on from his playing career and become a positive part of our society as well because of your influence. So in a way, those guys definitely influenced my decision to go into coaching.
Yeah, and I know Jeff wants to ask you about Trinity College, but before he does, I actually, you were kind of bringing that up. I think that's interesting. I kind of just thought about it, about this 85 defense, right? And, it always gets depicted as like this pack of wild dogs, and they're just aggressive, and they're just kind of, I don't want to say brainless, but just like it's the aggressive. It's not so much cerebral. But then you think about it, and obviously you were a defensive coordinator, head coach. Ron Rivera, defensive coordinator, head coach. Gary Fensick certainly felt like he could have been a head coach. Jeff Fisher, I know, didn't have quite the role in 85, but obviously longtime head coach. Mike Singletary, as Jeff mentioned, a lot of coaches came out of that 46 defense. You think that is a coincidence, or is it something about that defense and maybe more of a cerebral thought of the 46 and not just so much relentless pressure?
I think it's a little bit of everything you just said, along with Buddy Ryan, along with our head coach, Coach Ditka, and our personnel department, with Bill Tobin, and early on, Jim Finks, understanding the importance of not just having talented players, but guys that were smart and had good instincts, had awareness, to make up a quality football team. And I've learned over time, like when we're preparing to draft players, almost every good coach and good personnel guy I've been around, they're looking at more than just how fast a guy can run or how much weight he can lift. They're looking at the character along with how smart is he? I mean, how well can he adapt to situations? And so I think that's part of why some of us went on and became coaches and have had success in the NFL. But our staff, our scouting staff, along with our coaches, they understood the importance of looking at more than just a guy's talent and trying to find a player who kind of embodied some of those things that allow you to be successful when the coach doesn't make a perfect call, because sometimes you got to make the coach right. And part of that is having smart players.
Well, Coach, Bill mentioned it, that I do have a question about Trinity College because my co-host Lester Wiltfong lives near there, and he's like, you got to ask him because you started the program. And talking about an NFL coach that you're a couple years removed from the Super Bowl, the pinnacle of a player's career. And then a couple of years later, you're starting a program, at the Division II level or whatever competition level that is. How did that go, and how did you build a program from scratch? And what lessons did you learn? And did being a former Chicago Bear help you recruit players? Like, what was that process like and that time there?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question as well. And as I mentioned earlier, it wasn't my goal when I was playing to necessarily get into coaching. The injury in the Super Bowl had a little bit to do with that. If you guys recall, when I was injured, I was going to the last year of my contract, and I was looking forward to a big contract and an extension and all those things. But that injury set me back a little bit, and I end up that next season, being on the physically unable to perform list and having to sit out that entire season as I was going through rehab. And when my rehab was done, I wasn't able to pass that physical to get back and play again about a year and a half later. And so it was tough. I was just coming off of a season where I had led the team in the interceptions and for the third straight season and was looking forward to, great years ahead. But that injury kind of made me have to, change things a little bit. And so I started trying to figure out what's the next step for me once I didn't pass our team physical. And the next step was I looked at a lot of things. I looked at some different businesses in Chicago, thought about, how I wanted to use my college degree. And the president of Trinity College at the time contacted me about coming over and talking with them about starting a football program from scratch. And when he first called me, I was like, nah, I'm going to try to get my knee right and come back and play again. And but to make a long story short, after about 6 or 7 months of just looking around, trying to figure out what was best, I realized that this was a great opportunity at 28 years of age at that time to start a football program, be a head coach. And this was after talking with Coach Ditka and other people who were in coaching about what I was about to get myself into. And I just felt like it was what God was leading me to. This is the door that he had opened for me. And it was probably the greatest decision I ever made was accepting that offer from the president of the college, Dr. Kenneth Meyer, to be the first head coach there and to start that football program. Now, I found out just over about a year ago that the school has kind of been shuttered and they're doing everything online now. But we had a great experience there, and a lot of things I learned in my 9 years at Trinity I've kind of incorporated in the role that I have today as the assistant head coach here in Seattle.
Well, you talked about the injury, so why don't I go there next? Because obviously that is the one thing about the beautiful result of Super Bowl 20 that is just the unfortunate thing was your injury there, and a lot of Bears fans remember it and just the crushed for you. And I mean you did get to play in a Super Bowl, but take me back to that moment. You know, it's not on defense, it's on special teams. Like, what were the emotions in the moment? Did you know how severe the injury was? You know, did you just, you know, you're young, you're in your 20s, you're like, I'll be fine in a few months kind of thing. What was the emotion of that happening in the biggest game of your career?
Well, Bill, it was more what you said a moment ago. It was, you know, I was thinking that when the injury first occurred, I said, you know, I'll probably be out for a few plays and then I'll be back in. That was my mindset. And we go in at halftime and I see my knee is really swollen up. It's gotten a lot worse. And then I realized I wasn't going to be able to go back and play the rest of the game. And we had a big lead at the half by that time. And you know, obviously we ended up running away with the game. But even then, I just felt like I'd be able to come back and play and have a long career. I had no idea that it would turn out the way it did. And the doctors were telling me after I came out of surgery that the way surgery was performed on that day, a year from now, it will be so different. But they just weren't where they needed to be from a technology standpoint for guys to come back from ACLs on like they are today. I was just a little bit ahead of my time when it comes to that injury and medicine catching up to some of the things that guys do today when they're rehabbing. So, like for example, when I after my injury, I was in a cast like for 6 weeks where my leg was just straight. Well, today they don't even cast guys. I mean, they're mobilized, you know, right away. It's just so different. But I don't have any regrets. Things have really worked out well for me. It was hard at the time when I came back to Plattsfield for training camp and wasn't able to pass the team physical. That was a hard thing. You know, you pass physicals all your life, and all of a sudden you can't pass a physical because you don't have the flex in your knee. I never regained my full range of motion. But as I mentioned, things have worked out. I've been very, very blessed, and I probably wouldn't have gotten into coaching if it were not for that injury. So things worked out tremendously.
I'm kind of curious, is, you know, a lot of the former Bears players have been able to form connections to guys, current team, you know, past guys. And I'm kind of wondering with that injury, if you ever had, you know, someone like Gale Sayers who you know, suffered a similar fate with his knee when he was playing that really kind of shortened his career. Are there other players that, you know, helped you navigate that emotional, the emotions around not being able to continue your career because of that?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Gale Sayers' name. He was one of the people I talked to. When we started that program at Trinity, I'm gonna go back just for a moment. One of the things we had to do was fundraising. We had to do a lot of things. We needed uniforms, we needed to get fields, we needed to get weight room. So Coach Ditka, a lot of my former teammates, Gale Sayers included as a great Bear player, they would come over and help me to fundraise for the program. And Mike Singletary and I would do a summer camp, and where we would invite kids out and work with them on football. And Gale Sayers would always be one of our guests to come over and share with the young kids about football and his career. And so we'd have conversations about what I went through from a rehab standpoint, and then going on to the next phase of your life. So Gale, and there were other guys as well, when I was going through my rehab, that kind of talked to me and gave me some insight on things that were ahead. And so I'm forever grateful for some of those conversations with Gale. He was obviously a great player and one of my heroes growing up, and very thankful for some of those conversations.
Well, I want to bring you back on the field about 1985, because there's a couple, when we hear people talk about the 85 season, the Dallas game gets brought up a lot. The comeback against the Vikings gets brought up a lot. Obviously the Miami game for other reasons. But my father, who was a big football fan, season ticket holder of the Bears dating back to Wrigley Field all his life, there was a play that he talks about that he says really set the tone for the season. Because week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you guys did not have a great first half, especially for the 85 Bears defense. I think it was 28-17 at halftime. Bucs have the ball to start the second half and have a chance to really put some separation between you guys. And maybe you guys don't come back and win that one. But Leslie Frazier picks off Steve DeBerg, takes it to the house, cuts it to 4. Bears come back and win that one. I think it was 38-28. Do you ever think about that play in the way that play kind of turned that game around and kind of set the tone for the season? My father always felt it did.
Bill, I've never met your father, but man, that is so good, because Coach Ditka talked about that play at the end of the year. He talked about that. He went back to that play and said that play had as much to do with the success we had going forward as any play that occurred during that season. And I can remember it, man. We go in at halftime, they're killing us. They're running the ball on us, they're throwing the ball, and I remember sitting in the locker room saying, and we need a big play. I hope that they will challenge me this second half. I just hope they throw it my way. And Richard Dent, prior to the play where I intercepted the pass, he tells me, "Hey, Leslie, if they throw it, I'm gonna get my hands up. So be alert, okay? Just be alert." And Richard, speaking of smart players, Richard Dent was an extremely smart player. There were times he'd tell me during the course of a game, "Hey, on this next play, I'm gonna give this tackle an outside movement. I'm gonna come inside, and you watch it work. So we'll watch film on Monday, and I want you to see if it worked." And sure enough, almost every time he told me he was gonna do something, it worked. And so coming out that second half and Tampa dominating us the way they did, I was just hoping that I'd have an opportunity to impact that game. I said, I hope they throw my way. And sure enough, they did. Richard tips the ball. I intercept it. We score, and we end up running away with the game. And I don't, like you said, they didn't score again that entire second half. So it had a lot to do with us being confident, because coming into the season, we were confident. We thought we had a really good team. Come after that loss against San Francisco in the playoffs and the championship game, and I was injured in that game, and I really couldn't, help our team. But going to the season, we thought we were going to be that team, and to start off the way we did, it wasn't looking that way. And so once we got rolling, we all know the rest is history. But that play, Coach Ditka talked about it, and now to hear that your dad recognized it as well, that's pretty cool, So, but yeah, it was a big play for us.
Coach, I think I know the answer to this, but I have a personal feeling that the pick six is the greatest play in football. Just go, what are my playing career was all hand in the dirt. So I've never experienced that myself, but is it like hitting a grand slam? Like what are the emotions of taking the ball away and housing, for 6 points for your team?
Oh, it's a special feeling. We talk about it every place I've ever been on defense. We're always talking about scoring after getting a takeaway on defense. And it changes games. It changes momentum. It energizes the entire team. It's special, especially if it's one of those that kind of turns the tide in your favor, whether it's a walk-off interception for a touchdown that wins the game, or in the case we were just referring to, one that kind of, gets you the momentum and gets the crowd back into the game, because it's that type of play. So yeah, similar to a slam dunk in basketball, similar to a home run in the World Series. Yes, it's a big moment, a special moment.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to ask you about the Dolphins game, especially being you were a member of the secondary. And we had Jimbo Covert on, and we talked to him about the famous Buddy Ryan goes up to Jimbo and says, "Hey, I'm going to blitz the hell out of your buddy." And he says, "You do that, he's going to kill you." And obviously, we know from the documentaries about Ditka wanting Buddy to switch the nickel, and he wouldn't do it. So take us back to that Monday Night Football game against the Dolphins. Dan Marino kind of having his way. I know there were some tip passes that went for touchdowns and some bad luck as well. But what was the feeling in the secondary, having the struggle against Dan Marino? Did you guys feel you should have gone to the nickel? What was that? What was that like that evening?
Well, that is not a great memory, Bill, as you know. But
sorry.
But maybe our strategy was a little bit flawed, but it was what we did. Wilbur Marshall was a special player. He was one of those guys who could line up on a slot receiver although he played linebacker and could usually cover those guys. But Nat Moore, Mark Duper, and those guys, they were really, really good receivers. And, maybe it may have been to our benefit to switch to nickel defense, but, but as I mentioned earlier, we had so much success with what we had. It's hard to get away from what you've done and had success in doing. The confrontation between Coach Ditka and Buddy, that was hard to witness. You're in a fight trying to have success and trying to figure things out, and then your head coach and defensive coordinator are at odds at halftime. It was tough. It was tough. But the good news is we learned from that game. We rebounded from it, and we went on and had tremendous success. And then even the next morning, there we are doing the Super Bowl shuffle, and we didn't get in to maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we've got a call to be down and start to work on the Super Bowl shuffle. So it was hard, but it worked out for us in the end.
Well, you brought up the Super Bowl shuffle, so let me ask you about that, because we talked to Gary Fensick about it a little bit, and he talked about how it was kind of Willie Gault's thing, and but like some of the players like Steve McMichael were sitting there going, well, what are you guys doing? And I know you participated in it, but you were part of the chorus. You didn't have an individual role. So I want to ask you, like, how did you decide to get involved in that? And I also have to ask you, how does Leslie Frazier not have a solo?
Oh man, the hardest part was the fact that we lost the night before, and now we got to get up and go down there. And I know a couple of guys, Walter and a couple other guys, didn't make it, and had to be put in later on. And but I remember thinking to myself, should we really be doing this? We just had a tough loss, man, driving down here to do this. And I said, well, I committed to it, so I'm going to do it. And you're right, Gary knows that Willie was the guy who kind of orchestrated it all and got all of us involved. But I wasn't thinking much about what my role was or what they were asking me to do. I was thinking more about what they had told us it was for, and that was to raise money and really help people that were less fortunate. That's what was going through my mind. So whether I had a singing role or a dancing role, that really didn't register at the time. So we went down there. We had a great time there. If you ever see the pre-tape of some of the things that went on before the actual performance, we had a great time together, just ribbing one another and teasing each other, and we had great camaraderie with our team, with my teammates, and that's the one thing that I remember from that experience is the camaraderie before we did the taping with Singletary, with Gary, Mike Richardson, all the guys that participated. We just had a really good time, and it got our minds off of a bad game that we had the night before. So as it turned out to be, I think, a platinum record, and had a ton of success. So it did a lot of good, but going down there, it was tough to get there. But once we got there, it was fun, a lot of fun.
All right, last one for you, because I think you are a rare individual who can actually truly answer this, because I know comparing eras in the NFL is impossible. But when we talk about great defenses, the names that always seem to come up is obviously the Steel Curtain in the 70s, the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, and now people start talking about the Legion of Boom Seahawks, where you are now in Seattle, obviously when they were winning Super Bowls there about a decade ago. This 85 Bears defense, is it the great, if you want to say single season, because I know the Steel Curtain did it and won 4 Super Bowls, but is it the greatest single season defense that the league has ever seen?
Now, Bill, I'm a little biased on that one now.
I
do
understand.
Get asked that.
I understand, but you've been a part of the league. You were part of the league with the 2000 Ravens and the Seahawks. Yes. You were part of it. You saw it.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I do get asked that often, and there's no question. The dominance of the 1985 Bears team speaks for itself. I can't imagine that there was another team more dominant and had the impact that we had, more so than what we had as a defense on that 85 team. So to answer your question, I played on the greatest defense to ever play in the National Football League, and with tremendous teammates who impacted the game and had some serious personalities also that brought people to the game. It wasn't that we were just a good group on defense. There were people that became fans of the National Football League because of our defense. So it was a special time, and there's no greater city when it comes to support than what we experienced during that championship run. It was a special, special time.
Well, that is a great answer to finish on. There he is, Leslie Frazier, cornerback of the '85 Bears, and of course, longtime NFL coach. Coach, thank you for that interview. That was a lot of fun for us. We really appreciate it, and best of luck moving forward this season. You guys have a hell of a squad.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Coach.
That's it. 85 at 40. Bill Zimmerman, Jeff Berkus, and of course, Leslie Frazier. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time. Adios.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Coach. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.